welcome to episode 11 of the 15-Minute Coffee Podcast with Brandon Salazar, your go-to destination for expert perspectives and valuable insights from the world of business. Today, I'm here with Jordan White, an innovation manager at GS1 US. Now, before we get into the questions, I'd like to thank Mr. White for being a guest on the podcast.
Of course, no problem. I'm excited to be here and happy that you started a podcast and how hard you're working on it. It's cool to see.
Thank you. Let's start with the first question of tell me about your early life and career that led you to where you are today.
Yeah, definitely. I probably have a really untraditional path. So in college, I was a sociology major. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do when I graduated. But I knew I wanted to talk about people and learn about the things that people are going through in the world. So after college, I got recruited to be a teacher. I was a debate teacher for 2 years at a charter school in New York City. And then I taught English at another charter school in New York City during the pandemic. And then I kind of decided that I wanted to do something else and transition from teaching. So I spent a lot of time, working on my resume, taking a couple classes, and ultimately transitioning into my role currently as an innovation manager at GS1, which has been great so far.
And what sparked your interest in the supply chain area field?
So funny enough, I actually, before I got this job, I really never heard of supply chain. I mean, I knew what supply chain was, but it wasn't something that I thought that I could do or wasn't something that I thought was in my purview. And then um, GS1 reached out to me on LinkedIn. And then as I started to learn more about what GS1 was and what supply chain is, I began to really like the role and I began to really understand more about the role. Where now, after about a year and a half of being at GS1, I love supply chain. I'm obsessed with it. Supply chain is everywhere from the supermarkets we go to, from the pharmacies we go to, from the very movement of our goods. Our entire world is literally functioning because of supply chains.
Nice. And so, what would you consider a pivotal moment or decision in your career that significantly impacted your trajectory?
I think a significant moment in my career was COVID. Um, as COVID happened, I began to teach from my house and I was teaching fifth grade from my computer. And I just didn't like the experience. And I wanted to have a more hands on experience, but also I wanted to challenge myself. So I think COVID and ultimately lockdown made me realize that there was just a lot more that I could be doing and I wanted more. And then, really, another pivotal moment for me was being on LinkedIn and just reaching out to people who had the roles that I wanted. And even though I didn't know them, people were more than willing to help. And that helped me understand that, you know, if other people are willing to help me on my journey, then they believe that I can do it, then I believe that I could do it as well.
Like how you mentioned LinkedIn, because that's something I originally got into using more. So just like into my first year of college, I started using it the summer of, and I didn't really know what it was. I kind of thought it was kind of silly to even use as I was still kind of young, but it's definitely something that's helped me grow as a person and grow as someone some more professional because it just opens so many doors. And I never even like heard of LinkedIn before I started using it, which is like strange, but it's helped in so many ways.
Yeah, I think funny enough, I didn't really start using my LinkedIn until maybe 2, 3 years ago. In college, I mean, in high school, I made a LinkedIn. Everybody talked about it, but I didn't pay attention to it. In college, I know LinkedIn was important, but I didn't really focus on it. As I started wanting a new job, LinkedIn ended up being the most important thing. That's how I have the job that I have now. And a few other roles, like as I was looking, a few other recruiters reached out. I think LinkedIn is an amazing resource and it can open so many doors. It can help you find mentors. People are always willing to reach out and people are always willing to help. It's just on us as younger professionals to reach out to those folks. So I'm happy that you're starting to build a LinkedIn presence heading into your sophomore year of college. That's really good.
Thank you. So this is more GS1 focused. And so will you be able to talk about the plans to integrate GS1 technology into recycling?
Yeah, so at GS1 we focus on a couple of things. We have three pillars: identify, capture, and share. So what that really means is we want to be able to identify what the product is, capture a data carrier that's on that product, whether it be a barcode or any other data carrier, barcode, 2D barcode, QR code, whatever that might be. And then third is share. We want to be able to help companies share that data with each other. Companies have disparate systems. They may not use the same names for things. They may not use the same measurements, but or even identifiers for things. What we really hope to accomplish is to create a universal language of business so that companies that are disparate have disparate systems can work together and still share that information, ultimately having a positive impact on the global supply chain experience.
Nice. And I remember in first semester actually meeting you through the discussion of me talking about um how I was building this program on my computer that actually when you type in a UPC barcode and it finds the item in a database. So it's pretty crazy to see what's going on with GS1 and the technology that's going to be used now. But all that stuff is just amazing to me because I was really into that stuff.
Yeah, I think when it comes to recycling, when it comes to identifying products or the materials that are make up those products, GS1 plays a huge role. I think if we can figure out, especially in recycling, for example, we can figure out who owns this bottle after it's been thrown away, right? We talk about recycling a lot, but we never talk about what happens after that product's been recycled. So I think if we think about it in a more circular sense, where after you recycle something, we still need to find out what are we doing with that recycled product? What if a soda bottle gets recycled? That bottle can still end up somewhere in the ocean or in a landfill. So we want to try to find the best way to prevent that from happening. And one of the things that can help is just being able to identify those plastic bottles so then we can hold companies responsible for making sure that they're recycling their materials in an actual in a way that helps the planet.
Yeah. So so explain the importance of the need for innovation in a company such as GS1 and how the technology will shape the future.
Yeah, I think innovation at GS1 is it's something uh, that's really important. Actually, a lot of our standards that we have, our most popular standard is the UPC barcode. So when you're at the supermarket, pharmacy, you scan a barcode and it goes beep. That's our most popular standard. But we have so many other standards, whether it be from being able to identify locations, being able to identify assets, whether those assets are robots, medical devices, drones. It doesn't matter at GS1. We believe the identification of everything makes anything possible. So if we can really identify uh, locations and products and items that are used in the supply chain, we believe that we can really change the way that supply chain as a whole functions. And as an innovation manager, I'm allowed to kind of see what is around the corner. What are some of the ways that our standards can help solve any future supply chain issues? So, for example, during COVID, supply chains took a huge hit. When supply chains take a huge hit, the consumer feels that on the back end, whether goods might be more expensive, goods might be harder to find. So currently we're attempting to run some pilots where we are trying to figure out what are the best ways to mitigate some of these risks and challenges that may come up.
That's very interesting. So to go to this question, how does critical thinking and decision making play a role in what you do?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think every day I'm tasked with using my critical thinking skills. A lot of the challenges that I'm solving are not just they're not just one time challenges for supply chains. They're actually challenges that happen every day. So for example, when supply chains struggle with inventory management or they're misplacing products, that can end up being a million, sometimes multi-billion dollar issue. And I have to find ways to be as creative as possible and use critical thinking skills to really understand what is the challenge that a specific supply chain or business might be facing. And I have to really interrogate like what's actually going on here, what's happening, who's being affected, who's being impacted, and then think of the ways that GS1 standards might be able to solve the challenge that a supply chain or a brand might be facing. And even if we can't solve that challenge through a pilot, there are still learnings that can come from that pilot that we do in an attempt to solve any challenge that a brand or supply chain may be facing.
Nice. So GS1, you would say, is involved with a lot of companies and big brands, right?
Yeah, I think anytime you see a product, anytime you see a product in a supermarket, for the most part, those products are usually identified by GS1 standards. The barcodes, the not the barcodes, sorry, the lines that are on those products, those numbers under it, those that's called the GTIN. And most products will have those, whether you're in America or whether you're international. I know when I was in Guatemala in January, I saw products that were identified by GS1 standards. So that was really cool to see GS1 standards on an international level and have global impact.
Nice. So, and what sparks your interest most about your role and your day-to-day tasks?
I think what sparks my interest most is that it's always something new. No day is ever the same. I came from a background where I was up at 5:30, got home at 5 o'clock. My day was very routine. And I think here at GS1, my days feel very different and very fun because I get to tackle new challenges and I get to collaborate with people internally as well as externally to attempt to solve those challenges as well.
Nice. So, how does supply chain play a role in what you do?
Um, I think as an innovation manager, my focus area at GS1 is supply chain resilience. So I'm really focused on what are the ways that our standards can solve any sort of supply chain challenges, as well as mitigate those risks and even prevent those risks from happening every day. So supply chain is a huge part of my role. I focus on the delivery of products, for example, the delivery of goods to and from a distribution center to our homes. That's called last mile delivery. I'm also focused on what are some of the ways that robots might be used in delivery? What are some of the ways that and robotic process automation is used in the warehouse? Also thinking about how is it that we can assist brands in inventory management to prevent goods being misplaced. Also, some of the things is I'm sure you've seen in the news recently. There's been a ton of retail theft. We're trying to figure out what are some of the ways that we can solve that. How can we prevent? I'm sure if you've been into certain pharmacies or whatever, you might see goods locked up. Is that the best way to prevent retail theft, or is there other ways? So there are tons of things that I get to talk about that are within the supply chain realm that it makes my day-to-day tasks so interesting because it's never the same. One day doesn't look like the same like the next day. So it's really amazing.
Yeah, and the technologies that are being used now to prevent people from stealing, I think it's almost a way that's saying it's almost a way of just not people making people interested in even buying that because it feels like it's just hidden. Like they put it in a glass case with a lock. You have to get an assistant who works at the store to unlock it. I feel like it makes it very unappealing to actually just buy that thing, and rather you could just get it somewhere else at that point. But
Yeah, right. I think that that's 100% true, and that's how a lot of um, a lot of consumers feel the same way. As a consumer myself, that experience isn't always the best and can somewhat be very frustrating.
yeah, so for example, like if it takes a minute for every time you want to open one of the cases and you're getting 10 things and that's 10 minutes, sometimes people don't want to waste that time, 10 minutes of just opening the cases. And they'd rather just shop other places. So it could just be like a negative harm to some businesses.
Right now, imagine if that happens 10 times a day at every single location nationwide, right?
Yeah.
That that then has a much larger impact. So 100% I agree.
All right. And that wraps up with the last question. Thank you for sharing your valuable insights and expertise with us. It wraps up episode 11 of the 15-Minute Coffee Podcast with Brandon Salazar. We hope you've enjoyed gaining insights from our guests and exploring the world of business with us. Don't forget to check out the podcast on our social media at the 15-Minute Coffee Podcast on YouTube and Instagram for upcoming episodes. Until next time, stay curious and keep learning.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.